Hey guys, this lecture is specifically to go over your community engaged learning service reflections. I'm going to just briefly do an overview again. I'm going to talk a little bit about self-reflection and be kind of cheesy, and then I'm going to go over your reflections specifically, and then the assignments themselves and give you some tips. So community engaged learning, just as a reminder, it's not just about service hours. It's about a project, having a goal in mind to help serve the community, whatever community that is. If you are taking this course in the summer, the community could be 4-H, could be Civil Air Patrol, could be working with secondary teachers over the summer. If you're doing this course in the fall, it could be 4-H again. It could be working with high school students specifically, could be working with Boys and Girls Club, something similar like that. Okay, and your job is to solve a problem. Your job is to actually complete a full project for the course. I have a YouTube link there as well as in the description of this video to kind of take you back and remind you of what community engaged learning is about. The other portion of these assignments, though, is about self-reflection. And self-reflection is a cycle, okay? Something you go over and over and over again. And it really helps you to take ownership of your own learning. No matter what situation you're in, you want to go into it with a good mindset, okay? This course is all about professionalism and communication, and mindset is huge for that. You want to go in going, okay, what can I learn from this? And again, sounds cheesy, but that is actually the goal. Also sounds cheesy, but you want to talk to yourself, future and past selves, about your goals in learning, and it can help you to actually write this paper. You want to also consider a broader education. How do your skills transfer? Which in this class actually should be pretty easy. Professionalism definitely transfers easily. Communication definitely transfers easily. And you want to talk about, okay, here's what it's like in aviation, and here's how it transfers to something other than aviation. Again, should be pretty easy. You guys will use this textbook, okay, 12 Universal Skills, and we'll talk a little bit more about where those skills go, but that's kind of what you're taking on to consider in a broader education perspective. So your assignments, your service learning drafts, number one, you have 3 of them. Number 2, the directions on them are quite long, okay, but they are also very helpful. So you have 3 drafts. Your first draft you're going to get a peer review on. Your second draft you're going to get my review on, and then your third draft is your final. And each draft has these lists of things that the draft is supposed to cover. Your first draft has those 4 things, and then your second draft, you'll see like another spot underneath these that's in red, and you have to add that to your second draft. And then your third draft, there's yet another spot that's red that you have to add, okay? And so these are each of the, we'll call them categories, that you have to talk about in your service reflection. Overview of the project, summarize what it is. Analysis of knowledge, that's where your textbook comes into play and say, hey, this is what I learned, this is how I used it. And then civic context and structures. Can you use those skills to work with others, which again is really easy for this class because the skill you're trying to pick up is work with others, okay? And then last, diversity of communities and cultures. I love this class being online, especially in the future when we do have online degrees, because you could have somebody in Utah working with people in Michigan and Florida. And that's really, really good for you to have to work with a group from across different areas of the country, or even potentially different countries and certainly different cultures. The next section of directions on your assignment talks about what a community engaged course is, and these sections that consider what am I reflecting on and why are we doing a reflection, it gives you some things to write about. So if you can answer each of these questions in at least 1 or 2 sentences, you have your entire reflection paper written basically, okay? But it is all about thinking about the project, thinking about how can I take these skills and make them useful in any arena of my life, okay? So those sections, it kind of repeats itself a couple of times. Then you have sort of an overview of, okay, here's what you should actually make sure you hit on in your actual reflections. And they're very similar, if not exactly the same, as those original sections where it listed 4 things that you have to talk about, okay? Toward the end of your directions, so if you look at the very bottom 2 lines on this slide, you have examples. One of my tips that I'm not going to go over on the tips page, but I'm going to go over here, download that, erase the parts that you can't use, keep the parts you can use, and then tweak the wording and add your experience into it. Okay, and then you'll be sure that it fits what needs to be done for the assignment. So the second to last line, the example 1 and example 2, those are university-wide ones. I think they're from the College of Natural Resources, and they're good examples of what you do for a service reflection. The bottom ones, UAS example 1 and example 2, those are from my students specifically. The other courses I teach that are community engaged learning are UAS 2650 and UAS 3650. And it's literally a class where you go out and do projects for people, okay? Whether they are mapping projects, building drones with people, making a video for somebody, whatever, okay? There's a lot of different projects. And so those examples use drones specifically, but they're very well structured. And you know how I told you, like you have draft 1 and then draft 2, there's a red section? The examples that are attached to draft 2 included that red section, and then draft 3 there's another red section. Those examples include that final red section as well, so they kind of follow the entire process. Your actual assignments for community engaged learning, you have several. The first one was within the first 3 weeks or so of class, okay, maybe 2 weeks of class depending on when you take it. And it is where, okay, here's the project that I'm going to do, here's the dates that I got to go do stuff. So if you haven't, before you get to that specific assignment, so in this case it's 2.1 CEL Service Project Plan, before you get to that project plan, you should have reviewed in Module 1 the page that talks about, here's our projects we're doing for this semester. It could be Civil Air Patrol projects, it could be 4-H projects, it could be high school projects, okay? And so when you get to 2.1 CEL Service Project Plan, you tell me, which one are you picking, and what position are you going to play? Then the next one isn't due clear till, I don't know, in this case it's July 2nd. What is that, like 5-6 weeks later? You're supposed to actually be doing said project in those 5 or 6 weeks. Okay, and so this 3.9 CEL Service Project Update is where you jump on, you tell me how it's going, you tell me what you've completed so far, what you've got left to do, what dates you're working, any questions you have, just kind of a general checkup. So those are your first 2 assignments, and then we jump into the second half of the semester basically. Okay, so 4.3 Draft 1 Service Reflection is your first written draft of your reflection that has those 4 categories on it, and you're writing about all 4 of those categories. You guys will complete a peer review of that draft, so that's due about a week apart. Remember that if you do not turn your draft 1 in on time, you will automatically get a 0 on the peer reviews because the system just assigns them after they're turned in on time. So if it's not turned in on time, it doesn't assign you anything, you get a 0. So remember that that's the case for all drafts, okay? Then about 2 weeks later, you've got your second draft that's due. So what you're really supposed to do with these peer reviews is, yeah, you want to go in and critique them and stuff, but you've got 2 examples. You're supposed to go, oh man, I didn't write about that. I should totally write about that in mine too. That's the whole point, okay, is to get you thinking, to get you seeing other examples and get you to go, okay, yeah, let's add this to mine. So that second draft, like I said, it's due about 2 weeks later, and I will critique that one specifically, okay? Then your final draft is due, I don't know, like the last 3 days of class or something. It's the very last thing that you'll turn in for most of you. And you'll have your peer reviews as long as you turn it in on time. And then you have my review. And remember, in draft 2, you'll get a red section that you have to add. In draft 3, you'll get another red section you have to add. And then done, okay? That's the whole point of the class. And that is the whole point of the community engaged learning portion. It's worth 10% of your grade. Okay? So those are the, I guess, 6 assignments that you have for community engaged learning. So the specific tips I have start with using specific details, okay? The more specific you get, the easier it is to write about. Consider who, what, when, where, why, how. Okay, about one specific thing that happened. It's the easiest thing to do. And you can either come up with that one thing originally and start writing it, Or you can start backwards, where it says, think about why that one thing stands out to you. Think about that in the first place. Like, oh, I really learned something kind of valuable in those 10 minutes. And then write about the 10 minutes, okay? Second thing, use quotes from the textbook, right? Because again, part of the point is I'm taking this that I'm learning in class and using in class and applying it to my community engaged learning. So use quotes, super easy to do. And then last one, break your paper up into those specific sections. So there were 4 sections in the directions, have 4 sections in your paper, and then write 2 or 3 paragraphs about each section, or 1 or 2 paragraphs. Okay, just the more specific and detailed you can get, the better. Write several smaller sections, put them into that one document, and like I said, that's exactly what the examples look like that you can download. So last, just as a quick reminder, this course does have 2 designations. You've got your community engaged learning and your communications intensive. And if you need a review about that Carnegie Scholar thing that you can get on your transcript for taking CEL classes, jump onto the web links that are in this video. Okay, awesome. Let me know if you guys have any questions.